Good morning and welcome to Frank's School. I tried turning one of those lights off. Maybe there won't be so much of a shadow. It's an experiment. We'll see. My cats are here to help. I just hadn't better mess with the camera. Uh, uh, all right, this is Werdz. Werdz 1, I'm going to call it. This is the 6th year, 89th day, first video. And today I'm going to see if I can edit and do this in 2 shots. I've done that before. I think I can do it. It'll give me time to erase the board. Werdz... Well, I've already explained what it is. In any case, I've taken Werdz to the jail and got Werdz out of the jail and stuff. Werdz is the subject. It used to be called class vocabulary. I didn't know what the words were going to be. That's the way it is. But you know, the list I made right here is some, maybe you could say most, of what I've taught. I've been now to the jail twice. The first time, 45 minutes or so, and then yesterday it was 45 minutes with men and then with women. For the moment, well, I guess you could still think in terms of both what happened with the men and the women, but in my mind at the moment, I'm mostly thinking about with the men. I've touched on linguistics. They might not even know the word, but immediately when I started to say yuns, that was last week. How to fold, striking out, the correct way to fold, striking out the right way to do it. Chaucer's name came up. I've told them about Chaucer. Remember, these are guys with powerful intellectual curiosities. They want to know more. Orthography. I didn't use the word yet, but spelling. Orthography is the study of how to spell. We've dealt with that. Chapbook. Well, I'll have to tell you about that. We put well here. Yeah, that's kind of the start of a chapbook. I'd forgotten I knew the word for it. A cheap book, when a book is just little like this. What I did yesterday was I started them on their own chapbooks. I should look that up, make sure I've got that right. What's a title page? What's a frontispiece? I'd forgotten about that, and then I realized, oh, wait, I better tell them about a frontispiece. A dedication in a book, you have a dedication sometimes. You have a preface, and one of them said, why don't you say preface? And I said, well, I guess some people do. I don't know, preface. But see, they're curious. What's a preface? What's the difference? Introduction. We just set it up as positions that they might want to fill. Abbreviations. We began to learn certain abbreviations that are going to be used in this chapbook, which will be theirs. They're not just going to copy mine out. Each one is going to be their own. Quotation, we quoted something, how you quote something. We've documented a source. Where did the quotation come from? We've created a footnote. We've dealt with the idea of context, that a word has a context, words around it. Discuss the parts of speech. There are 8 of them. I hesitated to use parts of speech. At first I just said kinds of words because I didn't want to scare them all. And ellipsis, the punctuation mark of an ellipsis, how you use it. We did that. Stressed versus unstressed syllables. Oh, this is such rich soil because these guys are so interested in that. Canterbury Tales, they actually heard some of Middle English spoken. Now they've heard about the Canterbury Tales. At one point, one guy asked me, what is it with that book? What's the significance of that book right there? I had a copy of the Canterbury Tales with me. So I said, well, it's the first time that anybody really thought that English was a good enough language to write a book in. About 600 years ago, and before that they were written in Latin and sometimes French, but not English. And I had a chance to explain all about that, the significance of Canterbury Tales, and then Middle English heard. I spoke to the best I could in Middle English the opening of Here beginneth a talus of the book of Canterbury. Here beginneth a book of the talus of Canterbury. One that April, and I went on for a while with the opening of it. Well, I'm going to stop and then erase the board and write and show you a little bit more about what I actually did. But I'm trying to show you how rapidly these subjects are coming up and being dealt with. Remember, this is after 2:40, well, and you don't even have 45 minutes with all the stuff before and after. And they were with me on all of it. I can't, at least 90% of them were with me on all of it. All right, I'll be right back. Well, I hope that cut works in my editing. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, when I actually got to the, well, no, wait, let me show you the chapbook. This was to be the, all they did was at the bottom, I said real small in parentheses right down cover. No, title page. I ignored the cover because there's an issue of, can they have thicker material to be the cover? You know, all these rules that are necessary. But anyway, so that's to be the cover. Then comes the copyright statement, dedication, preface, contents, table of contents. I forgot to tell you about that. Abbreviations, introduction, and I had forgotten frontispiece, but I think I did tell them about, I'm pretty sure I did tell them about a frontispiece. Anyway, then we finally began. So it would have been nice if this had been on the right-hand side, I think, but there's what they wrote. I told them, I dictated a bunch of this. I said, write down, open quotes, here beginneth the book of the tales of, and then I said, stop for a second, put quotes. There's the end of the quote. And words, this will be the tale of words. But I said, you can call it something else if you want. The book's going to be yours. But that's what I'm going to call it, words. And then I said, now put a little one after that, because what we've done here is we've quoted. Those are not our words. They're famous words. And let's go and oh, I know, I separated. I said, go, 2/3 of the way down the page and put a wavy line across there. And then underneath it, put a one. And that's a footnote. I said it's a foot of the page, and here's a note, and we're going to say where'd that come from. It came from Canterbury Tales, Chaucer. I should have had the year, but I should have put the year down. Anyway, so they did that, and I said, okay, did anybody remember that I wanted you to come up with a word whose meaning you didn't know or weren't sure about, and bring it with the context? I'm ready to say where you got it. And sure enough, a couple of them had. And I said, well, what's your word? Iniquity. And I think you pronounced it right. Iniquity. And so I wrote it down. I said, good, you guys write it down, underline it, so we know that's the word we're dealing with. And then I said, can you tell which syllable is stressed? I might even said, how many syllables are there? Iniquity. And I think I did anyway. Which one's stressed? Iniquity. Well, it's that, so I double underline it. I mean, this is the way I've done classical vocabulary for years and years and years. What's the context? It was much longer. But anyway, I said, well, let's just take out of iniquity. That's enough. And from that, you can tell what kind of word it is. And I said, there's words that name, there's words that show action, there's words that describe, there's words that take the place of words that name, there's words that join. I went through the 8 parts of speech, but I didn't call them that. And I said, so what does this do? And eventually they figured out it's naming something. Out of something. So it's a noun, and we put a little N down. Does anyone know what it means? I'm not so sure they did exactly. Well, and they didn't have a dictionary. There was no dictionary available, but I had brought one. I was allowed to bring one in. Here, this is it. I had to check. I said, can I take this in if I take it back out? And of course I looked through it and said, yeah, you can take that in, as long as you take it back out. And the guy that I told you about that so desperately wants a dictionary, he stuck his face into that thing. I told him if it had been a coconut cream pie, he would have been wearing it all over his hair and everything. He dove into that dictionary, and he had been my student years ago. And so he looked it up right away. He was quick, he found it, and although he was working on iniquitous instead of iniquity. But anyway, we figured out it means wickedness. And, okay, good. Can you put it in a sentence? And we did a little bit. One of them said, well, I don't know. Anyway, time was so tight. I said, can we get another word? And ambiguity. Underlined it, there's the stress. They didn't hear the stress pattern automatically and immediately, but ambiguity, results in ambiguity and... was the context, and we finally decided, well, it means uncertainty. Actually, ambiguity is uncertainty between just two things usually, but I didn't have time to go through that. And then we tried it in a sentence or two, and then I said, well, can any of you put both of those words into one sentence? And we came up with this. I thought it was pretty good. The fear of ambiguity can lead many to iniquity-filled lifestyles. I'm quoting it because those are not my words. Wow, that's a pretty good sentence. I think everybody was impressed, but that's what happens with this exercise, words. All right, now I had taken a copy of Hoyle's Rules for Card Games, and I was allowed to leave it there because I heard these guys are allowed to play cards. And I thought, well, I wonder if they have a set of rules for card games. So I had an old copy of it and offered to tear the cover off because it was dyed red, but they said, no, you don't have to do that. I'd heard before sometimes they'll use dyes to tattoo or something. And I left them a copy of Aesop's Fables just because I thought, well, there'd be, I don't know, their library is so, I think their library is so limited now. And then finally, I'll tell you, I guess, that as we were closing up, one guy asked me, he said, can you recommend a book by Faulkner or Hemingway? And I thought, oh man, I don't read them very much. I don't read very much stuff that's 20th century. And Hemingway, I said, well, the one that I thought of, I said, well, there's a book called The Sun Also Rises. I read it once. I should have thought of the For Whom the Bell Tolls, but it was just caught me out of the blue. Because he wanted to have a book. Apparently he can buy them with the commissary. They can buy their own books. And he said, well, what would you recommend we read? And I said, well, or you read. I said, I don't know you. I very well. I don't know what you would like and what you wouldn't like. He said, well, so come up with something. So I said, Robinson Crusoe. And I thought, nah, that's pretty hard reading. Swiss Family Robinson. That's what there. You can't go wrong by reading Swiss Family Robinson. That's a classic. So. Well, I'm going to try to put this together and put it online, and then afterward, I guess probably tomorrow, I'll tell you about what happened similar with the women's class. Bye for now.